Hey everyone, welcome to day 3 of our series of workshops. I'm so thrilled that you're here. I see some familiar faces. For those of you who have attended the first 2, welcome back. And for those of you who are new, welcome. And for those of you who have no idea what's going on, welcome. Here's what's going on. This week, I organized kind of like a virtual summer camp, guitar summer camp. And every day of the week, from Monday to Friday, there's a new workshop. We had 2 already. The first workshop was right here in the studio with my friend Jesse, who came and talked about a whole bunch of useful things. You can rewatch the replay on YouTube. Might be on Facebook as well. And also in the private community. If you're not part of the private community, it's free. And it's all on guitarplayback.com. Anyways, today I am really excited about this workshop. This workshop is my really good friend. He's in the back right now. I can see him. You can't, but my friend Nick, you know what? I'm just going to bring him on instead of just talking about him. Nick, you ready? Okay. Hello, Nick.
Hey, David. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I know. And so we fixed the delay issue that we've had in the previous stream. So Nick helped me fix that, and now we can chat, which is really nice.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going really good. Yeah. It's a pleasure to be back. I mean, I know we did one of these before quite a while ago now.
Yeah.
Maybe a year ago, was it? Or longer?
Something like that. You were in your $1 million studio. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
it's still nice. But
I'm a home right now, but yeah, my studio is kind of. I got some of my guitars here in the background. So
nice. That's great. What are you going to talk about today?
So today, the main focus is playing over really kind of familiar pop progressions, and a focus heavily on triads. Because I remember when I started playing guitar, a lot of what you're taught in the beginning is usually scales.
Mm-hmm.
And scales are great, but, I always thought, well, it doesn't really fit always. We could play up and down a scale and it sounds great, but then occasionally it kind of sounds repetitive and things like that. So
yeah,
as soon as I learned about triads and what they really are and how to apply them, that kind of opened up a whole bunch of melodic stuff, which sounded way cooler to me.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to focus on.
Awesome. I think it's going to be super useful. Everyone watching, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, if you are watching on Facebook and YouTube, that's where you can comment, ask questions. I'll be monitoring the chat, and then I'll take your question in if there is one. And if you are watching from the private community, you're actually watching the YouTube embed. So you're watching the video on YouTube, but on the community. So if you want to comment, just hop into YouTube. You can click on, I think if you navigate your mouse on the video, you're going to see the title of the video. If you click on that, that'll take you straight to YouTube. And that's where you can ask your questions and all that. But besides that, I'm gonna log off, and I'm not log off. I'm gonna get off the screen, and I'll let Nick take it over, and then I'll be back right after. You ready, Nick?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. See you in a bit.
All right. See you soon. Thanks, David. Yeah. So, I've already mentioned what we're basically going to look at, which is soloing with triads and things like that. So I'm going to just start out by just playing a little bit, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about my thought process over this particular backing track. So this song, you should recognize it. It's a pretty famous song. And let me just fire up the song here 1 second. Okay, here goes. So you probably recognize that. That's I don't know, for copyright reasons, if I'm allowed to say what it is. That's why I didn't play the melody. But House of the something something. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but anyway, it's a pretty familiar song, and it's got a really interesting chord progression. I'm just going to pull up the chords on the screen here just so we can do that. Hold on one second. Let me find the right thing here. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. I'm not sure if you can. But we got the chords here on the screen. They're A minor. Let me just turn off my distortion here. So we got A minor, C, D, F, A minor, C, E, and then E7, and so on. A minor, C, D, F, A minor, E7, A minor. You can see it right there on the screen. So, you know, the number one approach that most people take with this stuff, and this is a fine approach, but I'm going to show you a different way, is to look at the key center. In this case, we're kind of looking at A minor, and decide that they want to play the A minor pentatonic over the whole thing. Like I said, this is not a bad approach. It's a good approach, but it's not always the most melodic approach, and you can actually blend in that approach with the approach that I'm going to show you, so you can combine both of the things. Oh,
Hey, Nick.
hey,
I'm
David.
sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
We're not seeing the chords on the screen. I don't know if there's a problem with your setup.
Oh, hold on. I have it down there. I don't know if that's...
And maybe it's not that important if it's just
Okay.
chords and stuff.
All right.
we
But
can
yeah,
do
it's
that.
at the bottom of the screen. I'm not sure how I make that the main thing, but I can see it on my end. But-
Don't worry about it. I think
Okay.
it's good. Thank you, though.
All right, no
All
problem.
right, back to you.
Okay. All right, so you can't see the chords. Never mind. But anyway, it's a really familiar chord progression. You can look it up online. It's not hard to find. And basically, what we have is we have these very specific chords, A minor, C, D, F, and so on. Now, one thing that I wanted to show you is I wanted to show you how I approach soloing over this, not using the pentatonic scale, but using triads. Okay, so it's a real shame I can't show you these on the screen. Let me see. Let me try again. Screen sharing. Hold on. Let's try again. Because I wanted to show you some inversions here on the screen. Let's see if this works. David, is there any way you could tell me if this is working or not? If you're there? I'm not sure if David's there, but anyway, I do have pulled up some inversions on the screen. If not, it's not a big deal. Okay, so basically where I start is I figure out where the first chord, A minor, is situated on these three strings G, B, and D. Okay, so there's really three positions, but before we get into that, I just want to explain what an inversion is. Okay, so essentially we got these, if we'll start with a major chord, we have three different inversions of a major chord. Okay, so this is one of the most basic ones. It's what we call a root inversion. It's these three notes. That's C, E, and G. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the PDF on the screen or not, but I'll show it to you anyway. So in this case, we're playing a C inversion. It's C, E, G, which is the 5th fret on the G string, the 5th fret on the B string, and the 3rd fret on the E. Okay? That's a C root inversion. Now, the reason it's called a root inversion is it has the root as the lowest note. That's your C root, C, E, G. So if we want to move this C chord to a different key, we have to find the note on the G string, the root note on the G string. So right now it's a C chord because this 5th fret on the G string is C. Okay, if I put it up here at D, that's a D major chord in a root inversion. If I put it here at the 9th fret, that's an E major chord in the root inversion. So on and so forth. It kind of moves around. It's a movable shape. Okay, so that's what we call a root inversion. Okay, now the intervals in this, it's a major chord. It has a root, a third, a fifth. And if we want to make this into a minor chord, all we got to do is we got to lower the third. Because this is the root, the lowest note, and then the third is the note on the B string. Ah, there we go. David's put it up. Perfect. This helps a lot. Okay, so now you can actually see it. So yeah, the root, the third, and the fifth. Now, if I want to make this into a minor chord, all I got to do is I got to change that third. I got to lower it by 1 fret, and I get a minor chord. Now, I do have the minor versions, which I'll pull up later, but for now, you can see at the top of this PDF that I have pulled up here that I actually wrote out the formulas of the various different chord types. Okay, so you'll see at the top it says major equals 1, 3, 5. That's the top left. Major equals 1, 3, 5. Minor equals 1, flat 3, 5. And diminished and other types of triads after that. But right now we're just focused on major and minor. So this first one on the left side of the page is the one that we're doing. And right now it's major. Okay, and all we got to do if we want to make it to minor is where it says 3, that's your third, you got to lower that by 1 fret. So the 5th fret becomes the 4th fret. And that will give us the minor version of that root inversion. Okay. All right, next we'll move on to the next one on the page, the one that says first inversion. Okay, a first inversion has its root note as the highest note. So in this case, you can see the 1, which is 1 is also known as root, it's the red note, is our root. And in this case, if we want it in C, we want to put it at the 8th fret, because the 8th fret on the E string is a C note. Okay, and then we have our first inversion of this major chord. And then finally, well, before we go on to the final one, we can take this first inversion and we can do the same thing that we did to the previous chord, which is to lower that third to a minor third, to a flat third, by just dropping the note 1 fret. We'd end up with a straight row of notes, 8, 8, 8. Okay, so instead of the major, we just lower the third, we get minor. Okay? Okay, now the final one, you probably recognize this shape. Okay, it's up here. You probably normally think of it as a D chord, because if you think about when we play D, the root note, you may not be aware of this, but one of the root notes at least is on the B string. That would be your D note. If you're going to be playing a D chord, it would be the 3rd fret on the B string is your D note, which makes it a D chord. Okay, but now we're doing it in C. So we want that note to be C. That B string note has to be a C note. So we want to put it on the 13th fret. Okay, and then there we got the chord. Now to make it into a minor equivalent, we lower that third, which is the top note, by 1 fret. We have to refinger it in order to do that, but that's how we get minor. So quickly, just to recap, we got major in a root inversion, major in a first inversion, and major in a second inversion. Okay? And we can make each one of these into minor by lowering that third. Major, minor, major, minor. Okay? Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because it's going to underpin everything that we're going to discuss from here on out. So knowing these basic triads is really important. Okay, now obviously if you're going to play different chords with these same shapes, you would need to know your root notes on either the G string, which is what we need for the root inversion. You'd need to know them on the E string and the B string, because each inversion has its root note on one of those three strings, either the G string, the B string, or the E string. So real quick, if we were going to play this song, House of the Rising Sun, our first chord in that song is A minor. Okay, so here's the logic behind what we do. So first of all, we want to find an A chord. Okay, so let's try it with the first inversion. That's the one with the root note on the E string. So we're going to find an A note on this E string, which would be the 5th fret. And so we'll play that first inversion major, but we want it to be minor, so we have to lower the 3rd, which turns it into frets 5, 5, and 5. Okay? Now we got an A minor in that first inversion. Okay, so that's the first chord. And then it goes to a C chord. Now we already know C chord because that was the key that's on this sheet right here. So I could play the C chord here in a root inversion. Now that's not the only place I could play both of these chords. I could have chosen to play the A minor here, or here, or here. You know, in any one of those three inversions. And the C chord could be played here, here, or here. But for now, I'll just keep it down lower on the neck. So we've got A minor as the first chord, C as the second chord, and then the third chord in the song is D. So we could take the C chord and move it 2 frets higher. That gives us our D. And the next chord in the progression is F. We could play the F in the second inversion, which has the root note on the B string, 6th fret. So now we got there is... I'll play that again. Okay. Now this is obviously different to playing it down at the bottom of the neck, but it's the same chords, just different way of playing them. Now you may be asking yourself, well, that's great, but how does this apply to soloing? And that's where I'm going to lead. Okay, so the first chord is A minor. So I can, first of all, there's a couple of things I can do. I could just play the notes. So when somebody's playing the A minor or the backing track's playing the A minor, I could just play the notes, right? And then C, and then F. So I'm going A minor, C, D, F. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, and I'm just going to show you that real quick so you can hear that in context. It's a simple way of applying these, but we're going to go a little bit beyond this. Okay, here goes. Here we go. Okay, pretty simple. Okay, that's the most basic way of applying them. I realize that is going to feel a little bit restrictive, but the point of this is in the beginning, we need to learn where the notes are. So I'm not saying this is how you're going to play ultimately. This is more like, think of it as like a drill exercise or something. You know, you're forcing yourself into knowing where the notes are. Okay, it's like when you start to learn anything in the beginning, it's not going to be perfect, but you're getting the groundwork and you're learning the nuts and bolts. So that's how we're thinking of this right now. Okay, so right now we did these 4 chords down here. Okay, now the next step is to figure out different places to play those same exact chords. So the A minor, instead of playing it here, I could play it in a second inversion. Now, if we were to play an A major in a second inversion, the root note would be on the B string. Okay. We'd have this shape. So to make it minor, we got to drop the 3rd, and we end up with this. So from this to this. So our A minor in the second inversion will be here. Okay. Then the next chord is C. We'll play C in a first inversion, which has the root note on the high E string. That's our C. Okay? And then the D, we'll move that first inversion 2 frets higher to make it into a D. And then the F, we'll play in a root inversion, which is here on the 10th fret. There's your F root. Okay, so now we got, there is a house in you. Okay? Remember, before we had this. There is a house in you. Okay, now we got this. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to play around this area. Okay. Now there is one other chord that I haven't mentioned yet, because I was trying to just keep it simple for now, but there's also an E chord in there too, which is like the F, 1 fret lower. So where we had the F in both cases, you just move 1 fret lower. Okay, so that's this position. And then the final position we can play on these three strings is here. A minor could be in a root position. So if you take an A major in a root position, it'll be up here, 14, 14, 12. And we're lowering the third. Remember, the third is on the B string. Gives us A minor. So we get A minor, C. We're going to do a second inversion, which looks like a D. And then for the D, we'll move it 2 frets higher, just like we did every other time. And then F, we'll do a first inversion, which has the root note on the high E string. That's going to be 13. Okay, so now we got, there is a house in New Orleans. So we have 3 different ways to play this. Let me just demonstrate this way now. Okay, cool. So 3 different ways to play these same chords. A minor, C, D, F. Next one, A minor, C, D, F. And finally, A minor, C, D, F. Now, once we know those pretty well, we're going to use that as our kind of, I guess you would call it our home base to bounce off of. So we can choose any one of these 3 home bases that we're going to play around. Now, I'm just going to ask David if he could pull up the 3 triad shapes again, if he's here. Yes, perfect. Thanks, David. Okay, so yeah, so this first one here. Now, what I want to just explain real quick is these are the triads, right? So they're just the chords themselves, the notes of the chord. You know, and guys like Mark Knopfler play off of these kind of shapes all the time. His whole style is based on this, you know, with a little pentatonic mixed in, but a lot of triads. So it's not a unique approach to me. You know, a lot of guys play like this. So this C triad right here, this first one that we see on the page, is called a root inversion. Okay. Now, we just have the bare bones of the chord here. We got the root, the third, and the fifth. Okay? So, when we play a scale, you know, when we go, you know, we're playing all kinds of notes other than, as well as the triad notes, we have other notes in between. So, what I want to explain to you real quick is how, if we look at this root note here, if we think of a scale, like a C major scale, start on a C, you go to D, right, usually is your second. So what we can do is we can add these scale color tones around the triad. Now, it's very easy to do. All we need to do is, you could think of a second, which is the second in a scale, as being a color note between the root and the third. So a second, you could see it one of 2 ways. You could see it as 2 frets higher than the root. So we see the root is here, right? So we can see it as 2 frets higher than the root, or we could see it as 2 frets lower than the third. So here's our third, 2 frets lower than the third. So now we got root, second, third, or root, second, third. So we just added that extra color tone around that. So we've added the second. There's another note that we could add. We could add the fourth. So the fourth, the best way to see that is to see it as 1 fret higher than the third. So here's our third in the chord, 1, 3, 5, right? Here's the third. The fourth is 1 fret higher than the third. So now we've added in the second. Here's the third. Here's the fourth. And the fifth is in the chord, right? Now we're missing a note. We're missing the sixth. A sixth is 2 frets higher than the fifth. So here's the fifth. Here's the sixth. So now we got almost a full scale based around this triad. Just by understanding that, you know, a second is either 2 frets higher than the root or 2 frets lower than the third, however you want to see it. Fourth is 1 fret higher than the third, and a sixth is 1 fret, 2 frets higher than the fifth. Now we're missing one note, which is the seventh. Now you could see the seventh a couple of ways. You could see it as 1 fret below the root. So you could go root, here's a 7, root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And you could also see it, you know, up the octave as being 2 frets higher than where the sixth was. But we don't need to worry too much about this. But basically, this is going to apply to a lot of the chords that we were looking at today. So when we're playing A minor, which is this chord, okay, we can apply very similar principles. Okay, so here's our A minor. So we did the A minor here in the it's based on the A major in the first inversion, and then we lower the third, right? So this is our A minor. So I could, again, here's the root, so I can put the second just above the root, 2 frets above the root. Here's the fifth. I could put a 6 above that. And here's the third. Now, with a minor third, the fourth is 2 frets above the minor third. So now that's our A minor. Now, we have options, like, for example, with the sixth, we can also play a flat 6. But don't worry too much about this. For now, I want us to focus simply on adding the second. Okay, so we're going to take the triad, and we're just going to add the second on top. So remember, second is either 2 frets above the root, or in this case, it's a minor third, 1 fret below the minor third. And then C, the C. Here's the second. And then the D. And then the F. A minor. Okay, let's just hear that. I'm going to add in that extra note. Here it goes. Okay, again, A minor, C, D, F, A minor, C, and then there's another chord in E which we'll get to. So we can see that by using these triads as our kind of home base, we really get some nice things to kind of bounce off of. Now, I'm sticking to this song right now, but it would work with any song as long as you're playing off the chords of the song. So I'm going to pull up another song example right here, and apply the same principles, and I'm going to be thinking of that chord progression instead. Now this one is called Hotel something. Hey! David, you shrunk. Okay. You shrunk and you multiplied. Cool. Oh, you're back. That's awesome. All right, so let me just pull up this other song right now, and I'm just gonna play off of this one. So give me a second. Oops, the wrong one. Hold on. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Okay. So that was using the same approach. Now, this is the beginning of basically how I approach triads. And this is kind of like lesson, I guess, number 1. But eventually, you will learn triad shapes on all string sets. So right now, every one that I've shown you so far has been on strings 3, 2, and 1. So we learned the major triads, like C major in this case, here, and then we talked about shifting them around to make them different keys, and then altering the third, lowering the third to make them minor. And that gives us every minor and every major chord in all 12 keys in 3 shapes, which is great. But beyond that, we can also, I'm just going to pull up a different one here real quick. Let me, sorry, David, let me just open a different one here. Oops, I probably didn't need to click on that. All right, so let me see. So that was strings 3, 2, and 1. Here is strings 4, 3, and 2. So you should see that appear shortly. Okay, this is strings 4, 3, and 2. Okay, so same deal. We got the root inversion. And some of these shapes may be a little more familiar, at least the first and the third one will be. So that's your root inversion, root, 3rd, 5th. I did this one in G. So if you want to make that minor, you lower the 3rd, so you get minor. And then the first inversion is this one. To make it minor, lower the 3rd. And the final one you'll recognize like an A chord, basically. We're doing it as G here on the 12th fret. Middle note is the root. 3rd is the highest note, so lower the 3rd, you get G minor. So, and so on, and that's the next one. Now I don't know how this is gonna work, but I'll probably send David the links to these files so you can have these and kind of learn them for yourself. But this is strings 4, 3, and 2. Okay, then the next one I'm gonna pull up real quick just to show you. Is strings 5, 4, and 3. Let's see, strings 5, 4, and 3. There you go, David. So these are the inversions on strings 5, 4, and 3. Same 3 inversions, root inversion, first inversion, second inversion. Okay, you'll certainly recognize that 3rd shape there. It looks like an E chord. But we're probably not used to viewing it in that sense of the D string being the root. But and then I know I'm whizzing through these, but it's just to get the message across that we learn them on all 3 string sets. Here is the last one. It's on strings 6, 5, and 4. Okay, so this is ultimately what you want to do. You want to learn all 4 of these string sets. So strings 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, and 6, 5, 4. So David, you should see another file here. There you go. And these are the ones from the strings 6, 5, and 4. Okay, so you want to learn ultimately all of these, because then what will happen is you're not stuck on just these 3 strings. Now, it's fine to start out like that, but ultimately you want to have the freedom to move around. So I'm just going to demonstrate kind of moving around the neck a little bit more on different string sets. Oops, let me put the backing track back again. You can check out anytime you like. Here we go. All right. So that's just it's me improvising using the triads and occasionally adding the seconds in there, and maybe sometimes the fourth. But basically, I'm thinking triads. Now, I'll intersperse it sometimes with the, which, if you think about it, is what happens in the original solo. The original solo, it starts with a kind of pentatonic riff. Sorry. Now that note, where does that come from? It comes from the second chord in the song, which is F sharp major. If you think about F sharp major, here's an F sharp. Here's it's actually the third of an F sharp chord, so you can see it in this shape here. So it goes. So he's actually thinking of the chord. So it's really, really important, I think, to get to grips with this if you want a melodic kind of sensibility to your playing, so that not everything is kind of plastered over the chords. You know, a lot of the approach that people take is to use one scale, like the B minor pentatonic scale, and plaster that over the whole thing without necessarily thinking about the chord. What I'm saying is that we're going to start to introduce some of those notes of the chord. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, that's excellent. It sounded so melodic. I love that kind of playing. A couple remarks and questions too. So I think, and I saw that in the chat, a lot of people are really liking what you're saying because it sounds less like scales and more like music.
Right.
And I remember when I was, I don't know if you've ever done that, Nick, but I was in music school a long time ago, and one of the exercises we had was over a simple chord progression. I think it was a blues, actually. Mm-hmm. And in order for us students to kind of understand the concept, we had to write a solo without, and perform it in front of the class without the backing track. Mm-hmm. And that is very revealing because, you know, if you play just pentatonic, that's where it sounds like scales, and you could hear a solo, pentatonic solo, improv, noodling, whatever, and that could work over a multitude of different things.
It does.
Whereas the approach that you're taking with triads, you could hear the chords without needing to hear the chords.
Yes,
So,
and that's what I was going to say is like the approach. If you ask somebody to play a solo using the pentatonic and said, okay, play Hotel California with just a B minor pentatonic scale, and then took away the backing track, most players are not going to sound. You're not going to hear the song anymore.
yeah.
It's going to sound just like it could be on one chord.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if we could, sorry to put you on the spot, but if we could play that little game.
Sure.
If I gave you 3 simple chords, let's say G,
Yeah.
C, and a D, okay? Typical
Sure.
chord progression. And could you improvise something? Think of those chords,
Yeah.
and let's hear what it sounds like.
Okay. So here's G. C, D, back to G.
Nice. Yeah, there's no doubt as to what you're playing, and it sounds so melodic.
Yeah. Can I try one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm going to put myself on the spot here. I'm going to play Hotel California real
Okay.
quick. Just one pass through. Okay,
Yeah.
here goes.
let's do it.
Okay, here goes.
Excellent. Yeah, that's so melodic. I think that's a good gauge. I know when I was younger, I thought a good solo had to be fast, impressive, and all that. But this speaks to me so much. It's awesome. We had a question
Sure.
that I wanted to bring up. You kind of answered it, but I'll leave you with the question on the screen, and then I'll let you
Absolutely.
continue. But it's a question from. Oops, he left. The question left, not the guy. But
Okay.
hang on. There we go. Do all these triad patterns also match our full caged position? Can you talk a little bit about the cage stuff?
Sure. Yes. Oh, actually, I see you there, David.
Oh, sorry.
Instead of me. It's okay. Yes. So, I mean, everything is part of everything. You know, this is just a microcosm way of looking at it. You know, as you add the different triads together, you know, we talked about strings 3, 2, and 1, right? And learning those three shapes for major on those 3 strings. So, okay, that's great. And then you learn strings 4, 3, 2, and so on. Now, if I overlap these, if I take the triad from strings 3, 2, and 1, and the triad from 4, 3, and 2, and you play them together, they form a bigger shape. So to answer your question, yes, everything is part of everything. I know that sounds like a weird statement, but you know, if you think of the neck and you think of whatever you want to play on the neck covers the whole neck, the cage system is just another way of piecing that together. But the benefit of learning things the way that I'm teaching today is that you learn more bite-sized parts of a full chord. You know, because if I showed you this full shape and said, okay, this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, that's like a whole lot of notes, and a lot of them are repeated, right? So we got the 1 in 2 places, that's the root, the 5 in 2 places, and the 3 in 1 place. So it makes more sense to me to learn these smaller chunks, which are, you know, just three string or 3 note versions of of this, and then that helps us to learn where the root, where the third, where the fifth is. And then if we learn it in the next shape, root, third, fifth, you'll start to kind of understand that, well, okay, this is part of that bigger shape, and you will notice that. But yes, to answer your question, it all overlaps. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
No problem.
I have one more thing. Maybe you're going to get into that. I don't know. But one thing that I found useful too, besides sounding melodic, is that it kind of removes the anxiety that you might have when playing with maybe more complex forms of music where there's like modulations and things like that. And gigs where maybe you have like just a lead sheet with the chords and you don't have time to go over it. You just follow the chords and you kind of like picture the chords on your fretboard or imagine the triads extracted from the chords. And it's almost like an instant solo in a way that will sound melodic.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be flashy. I could literally just, I don't have to play all the notes in the triad. I could play one note. And then for the next chord, maybe two notes. And then one note for the next one. And then one note for the next one. And you could almost hear that was C, A minor, F, G, just from that. It's pretty cool.
And it'll work with like weird stuff too that modulates all the time. You just focus on the chords and then bam.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I'll get out. I'll let you continue. Maybe you're done. I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I don't know how long have we got, David.
We got about an hour. But
okay, so
we can
another 10
chatting.
minutes. Okay, we'll continue chatting. I just want to just to dovetail off what you just talked about there with the more complicated progression. I just want to demonstrate one of my own songs, which has some interesting chords in there.
Awesome.
So I'll just do that real quick.
Okay.
All right. So this is a song that I wrote called Ojos, which is Spanish for eyes. And let me pull up the backing track here. I'm just going to have to find where the solo section is. Okay, here it is. 1 second. All right. So it's almost coming up in a second. All right. So it's going to start now. Let me just explain the chords. So the chords are E minor 9. And then it goes to G minor 9, back to E minor 9, then F minor 9. That's the first few bars. Then it almost does the same thing again. It goes E minor 9, G minor 9, E minor 9, and then B flat minor 9. And that's the progression. And let me just play over it, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. Okay, obviously that's more complicated, but it's really the same approach. What I'm not trying to jump to something real advanced here. I'm trying to explain that everything that I play, I'm thinking the same way. You know, it's not like I think one way over a simple chord progression and then I think another way over more advanced chord progression. It's the same approach. I'm thinking of the chord. And, you know, what's amazing about chords is if you look at like a chord that you might think is complicated, like I'll give you an example, an E minor 11. Okay, let me just play this chord for you. Okay, now you might think, oh gosh, E minor 11. That's crazy. How am I going to play over that? Well, think about it. E minor 11 is just an E minor chord with extra notes on top. So what would you play over an E minor? E minor pentatonic. Okay, that's fine. Or what about if you just wanted to do the triad approach? You could play E minor triad. Okay. Now, E minor 11, let me just show you this chord shape real quick, just to explain something. Okay, now I don't know how well you can see this, but I'll explain it to you. It's the 7th fret on the A string, the 5th fret on the D, the 7th fret on the G, the 7th fret on the B, and then it kind of bar to have the 5th fret on the high E. So it's from the A string starting is 7, 5, 7, 7, 5. Now if you pay real close attention, you'll see the top three notes are a D major triad in a root inversion, which we've done today. So, as well as playing an E minor triad, I can play a D triad over this chord. Because chords have chords within them. You know, even an advanced chord like this has triads inside it. It's got an E minor triad, it's got a D triad. So I could, over that one chord, that E minor chord, let me just freeze the chord here. Let me see. Okay, there it is. It's E minor 9. E minor 11, sorry. So I could play my E minor triad and a D triad. In different inversions. E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor. So now I got this going on. That's pretty cool. That's just one chord, okay? Now in the song, it then goes to a G minor, right? So I could freeze that, G minor 11. Okay, there it is. Do the same thing. I can play a G minor triad and an F triad. G minor and F triad. Now you can find creative ways to play them. That's pretty cool. So all this stuff is very applicable in all kinds of different situations. I'll just play over the track one more time and then I think we're just about done. Here it goes. E minor. I'm going to play D triad. G minor. There's an F triad. E minor. D triad. Then F minor, and an E flat triad. You know, and it goes on and on and on. So I think we're just about out of time. But if David wants to jump back on, we can wrap things up. But I hope this all kind of made some sense. I know I jumped into the deep end a little bit there, but I just wanted to show you that the same thinking applies regardless of style and regardless of complexity.
Yeah, I thought that was excellent. This is what we all need to kind of get out of playing the scales and making music more. I think it was great. It made sense.
That's great.
I'll follow up, Nick, later on just to see if you can send me those diagrams. I'll put them under as a download. And I do have one question.
Sure.
I noticed when you're playing, it's you've got a Telecaster.
Yeah. Yes.
Tell me about that.
I've actually got 2 of them, and I've got a 3rd one in the works at the moment.
Is this like what? Tell me about it.
It's just a fun project. I might eventually think about making them and turning it into a business. I don't know, but for now, it's just for me. You know, it's kind of a fun little thing. Here, Nick's. It's not Zoom. There you go. Nick's Telecaster. You see that? Yeah. So basically, you know, this particular guitar, I wanted a Goto Floyd, and I love these bridges. They're awesome. The crazy thing with it for me is that it just won't go out of tune. Check it out. I could play like that all night, and it won't go out of tune. It's got some interesting features. You know, I got a different kind of nut on this one. It's these are, instead of the lock, well, it is a locking nut, but instead of having you know, the Allen wrench and having to unscrew and these just unclamp by, it's a finger flip. You just flip this with your finger, and then it's unlocked. And then if you want to lock it back down, you flip it back down, and it's locked, which is great because I always hated that about the locking system. But this thing stays in tune like crazy. It's a Strat, you know, essentially it's just a Strat body, and it's a 3 pickup. These are called Zex coil pickups. They're noiseless single coils, but let me just play it. So yeah, I can get all the classic Strat sounds, you know. It sounds great. So yeah, it's kind of a fun little project for me. This one's got I can't remember if it's Brazilian rosewood or Brazilian something neck.
Did you work with a luthier to make those changes?
No, I did it all myself. The one thing, I got the guy to paint the headstock. I got a paint guy. I wanted it to match the body.
Nice.
I'll show you one other I got right here.
Okay.
Real quick. This is a more traditional pickup configuration, single, but it still has the Goto bridge and also a matching headstock. That's also a Nick's Telecaster.
Nice, I love it.
More traditional sounding pickups. Also stays in tune. I don't think I've tuned it for 2 weeks.
That's
pretty crazy.
Amazing. Do you guys hear the screams in the back there?
Yeah, it sounded nice.
Yeah. It's my kids fighting there. Nick, thank you so much. That was excellent, as always.
Thank you, David.
I'll let you go. I know you have a busy day, but we'll be in touch this week. I'll text you later.
Sounds good.
Thanks again, Nick.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. See ya.
What a session. What a great player. What a great guy. I really had a lot of fun learning all that stuff. The replays are going to be available later today. I don't have to do anything. YouTube does its thing, and it should be there. Maybe it's instant. I don't know. But anyways, you can check those out. Also, if you like what we're doing, it's all free this whole week. All the workshops are free. I'm paying Nick, so it's not slavery, I promise. But if you want to support this, there's a bundle that you can grab for $37 with, I added a bunch of courses, workshops, and all that good stuff. It's available this week for sale for only $37 instead of, I don't know, if you were to buy everything, something like $167, something like that. But check it out. And then tomorrow, Sam Bell is going to come, and she's going to talk about creative limitations, limiting yourself to something that seems difficult, to step out of it and sound interesting. So that's tomorrow, same time, and then Friday we'll end our workshop week with I'll do a workshop here. I'll host a workshop, and I'll talk about playing with joy, how to find joy in your playing. So that's coming up Friday. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much for all the instructors. Nick, thanks again, and I will see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. See you soon.